Good morning, everybody. This is Morgan Denny coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And this morning on PT on Ice, I just wanted to talk about some things dealing with technology. For those of you who know me, you will probably know that this is kind of an odd topic for me to take on because I'm actually fairly anti-technology. I tend to be the one that throws their phone in another room for the entire day and doesn't check it till later. I don't bring my computer into the room when I'm treating a patient because I don't like the disconnect it can create. But at the same time, I think that there are some really valid uses for technology in the clinic, and there are some really cool apps out there these days. So I think that we should probably start using some of them. So today I want to talk about a handful of these apps. So I listed 10 or ish because I'm going to throw a couple extras in there. Some of these are apps that I use on a fairly regular basis, and some of these are apps that I think can be useful in the specific, correct patient population. And some are apps that I have very little experience with, but that I really have enjoyed kind of looking at and playing with, and that I'm going to try to implement more and more as time goes on. So I just wanted to talk about some of those this morning and kind of give you guys some of those resources. So the first one that I've been playing with that I really like a lot is called Clock Yourself. This is an app that costs $1.99, not too bad. It is something that is based on the idea of standing in the middle of a clock face and being able to step in different directions towards numbers. Now, this is super boring sounding, and sure, you can have anyone stand in the middle of a circle and kind of like tap their foot in any direction. But the cool thing about this app is that you can set it to be specific time frames and rhythms and frequency. So that as people are actually moving throughout this and it's saying, hey, put your foot on 3, you can change it so they have to do 10 taps per minute or 4, so that you can actually change like the cognitive quickness that is required for this task. Additionally, it kind of adds in the element of different kinds of movement. So you can have to reach your foot to tap for number 4 while you do a biceps curl. Kathy White, yes, I will put a list down at the bottom of the Facebook Live version of this, absolutely. So it's pretty cool. And the neat thing is you're not only able to add movements to the stepping, but you can also change what the pattern is. So whereas for the traditional sense, use a clock, and for most patients, a clock will be hard enough for them to do quickly. For some patients, you can replace the clock with symbols or calendar months, other things, so that patients are having to think about a lot further or think a lot further down the chain rather than just go at the clock face. This is great for a lot of different populations. Like, I definitely work with a lot of people who are concerned about falling. This is something that gets people to move faster or can challenge their balance in a way that they're thinking, but they're also like able to go a little bit more quickly, step in different ways, challenge their balance, like change what gravity's doing to their body at that time. And it's something that if the patient has a smartphone or if anyone in their household has a smartphone, it's really easy to load and use. And that user-friendly ability is probably pretty key, especially if you're treating an older population. But I will say that setting it for an upper level, setting in the Clock Yourself app is really challenging. So giving this to an athlete that you want to work on agility or want to work on some different motor coordination patterns could be good too. I mean, I know I've certainly seen people in the clinic that you give a fairly simple task to, and they complete it, and what you say out loud to them is, that looked difficult for you, and in your mind you're thinking this person is a total motor moron. But kind of building some of that coordination and quickness and speed and understanding where to move your body is a key piece of kind of movement recovery. And I think that this Clock Yourself app could be a really, really handy way to send someone home with some different type of movements that are fairly straightforward, that you don't necessarily need to be monitoring how they're doing it very well. So Clock Yourself is probably like my new favorite that I plan on playing with a lot more in the clinic. Next one up, and this is one that most people have heard of or know of, but I'm just going to put it out there so this list isn't incomplete, but using the goniometer app, the G Pro. Really simple if you have an iPhone or any other smartphone out there. All you do is load it, and if you have your phone horizontal, you set it at 0. Super easy. There's a free version. There's also you pay $5 version for it that's a little bit more upscale. But either way, if you have your phone in your pocket and you're in with patients, being able to use that might be a little bit more effective or a little bit more specific than using a goniometer. I'm not a huge range of motion measure person in the clinic. I know that's shocking for any of you that know me. But at the same time, being able to gauge how much someone's moving, especially like post-surgically, just to give that person a range that they're looking at, a goal to meet so that they see that they're progressing, those things can be key. So having an app like this can be really, really handy so that if you have your smartphone, or you can teach a patient how to use it so they can measure their own range, super awesome. Really, really easy. Moving on, the CMV Pro. This is a frame analysis app. If you are working with any kind of runner, athlete, cyclist, or somebody who just is moving kind of wonky and you want to work on it, this is a kind of handy one. It's no dartfish. You're not going to put all the little stickies on the person and have them glow in the dark a little bit and draw the lines. But you can use some slow-mo on this one, and you can do some freeze frame analysis with it, which with any athlete, whether you're a CrossFit athlete or a golfer or a tennis player, or whether you just do some easy running, if you can get some slow-mo video of the person completing the task, it can completely be a game changer. So this app is, I believe, free, or again, you can upgrade for a low payment of like $1.99. But being able to use this with your patients, you can draw lines on the picture so that they can kind of see what you're seeing, or you can point it out to them a little more specifically. But I would encourage you guys in the clinic, whether you use this app or not, definitely taking video of your patients doing the movement that is irritating to their body can be more than helpful in terms of determining exactly what's going on or how you can kind of fix their movement problem. All right. So the next couple really have to do with if you're working with people who have chronic pain or who are higher anxiety patients. This is something that's coming up more and more, not only because the chronic pain problem in our society has sort of come to the forefront and we're seeing more and more of it and we're understanding the role that opioids have played, but also because people are acknowledging that anxiety, that underlying stress factor, can play a big role in people's lives and actually affect their health in general. So, I generally tell clinicians that I think that we should really be addressing anxiety, and we should be able to talk to our patients about some ways to manage their stress better, really feel better in their own body and in their lives. But if you're a person that is not comfortable with that, or if you've only got 15 minutes with the patient and you need to get some other type of work done, some of these are apps that could be really, really helpful because they're easy, straightforward, and when you give them to the patient, they're self-guided and directed, right? So the first one is called Curable. Now this one is pretty in-depth, and so if you're using Curable or you have a patient use Curable, warn them that it's kind of a commitment. I believe it's $5 a month, but beyond that, Curable basically helps people to understand chronic pain better. So for patients that you think need a really long, consistent education on pain, this could be an app. And basically, when you use this app, you're talking with a little app bot or robot or faux human or whatever you want to call them, cartoon that's used in Curable. And she basically has a conversation with the person that's a little bit one-sided, as one can imagine. But she has a conversation with that person in order to kind of bring them into this pain education world, but do it slowly. And people tend to get a little bit attached to this fake person. It's kind of cute, but it is a commitment. So each session can be up to 45 minutes or an hour. So if you're having someone that you're not sure, not comfortable, or don't have the time doing some of that pain education work with, Curable is not necessarily a thing that you can just pass that education off, but is something that you could implement in order to start the conversation. So that's a really handy one. If you have a patient that you just want to start slowing down or decreasing their anxiety, there are a couple different apps that can be helpful here. My top favorites are Headspace, which is a really common one, which is a general meditation app that a lot of people use that has different forms of meditation or different forms of kind of like games or projects that can keep your mind a little bit more focused or present, calm down the nervous system, that sort of stuff. And the second one is called deep breathing exercises and pranayama techniques. And don't let the yoga piece scare you guys. It's a really simple breathing app, but what it does is you can set the timer and you can set the type of breathing experience that you want the patient to have. This deep breathing app has my favorite breathing exercise, which is square breathing, where you breathe in, hold, breathe out, and hold for the same duration, so you're counting. Basically what this app does is it does the counting for you. It puts on some really it puts on some really relaxing music in the background so that patients kind of relax as they're going to the breathing stuff. You can set your phone so that it buzzes every time it wants you to inhale and then exhale so that you can do it with your eyes closed. But either way, it's a really, really simple app. Once again, free at first, but if you actually want to listen to all the music that they have, it's like $2. So being able to use that one or the Headspace app to get people to calm themselves down, and give them the goal of, I want you to do 1 to 2 of these a day or every hour, just depending on how heightened their anxiety or stress levels are. And that way you give them something that it's easy, they pop it on their phone, they do it once or twice a day, they start to see some changes, and you don't have to worry about if they're doing it correctly, like if they're following the directions, they're right there in front of the person. The last app, sort of in this kind of chronic pain region of things that I want to talk about, is the Recognize app. And that's Recognize spelled with an S because it's not from the US of A. So the Recognize app is for laterality training. Just the quick and dirty on that is that when you have a pain problem that persists for a really long time, there's some kind of mismatches and smudging that goes on in your cortical map. And so kind of determining right from left can be difficult. So one of the signs and one of the tests we use is to see if the patient has a normative value for right and left in terms of discriminating which side is which. So Recognize is a really nice app that takes visual pictures of each body part. So the most common one is the hand. And it shows patients pictures of the right and the left, and they have to identify them. But it times the patient so you know if they're within that normative value or not. But additionally, you can take that app and you can make it harder. So it's not just a picture of a palm. It can be a picture of a statue's hand or somebody holding a tennis racket or doing something functional. But being able to use that with patients is great as well, because sometimes talking with patients about some of these changes that happen with chronic pain can be a little bit like mystifying. It's like, okay, you're telling me this stuff and sure, it can make sense, but it's a little bit over their head at first. But to take an app like this and use it as a test in the clinic can be helpful so that patients can see that there is actually a difference or a change. And additionally, it's something really easy to send them home with as homework. It's fun, it's easy, their kids can play it, they can play it. So Recognize is a really, really handy app, and I didn't mean that as a pun because hands are common to use in Recognize, but Recognize is a really handy app that you can use in the clinic for testing, but is great to send patients home with if you find that there's that difficulty with the laterality. So that's a really good one. I better move on. I'm taking way too long. Should have set my 10-minute Mike Eisenhart timer. So the next one up is the iExercise Medicare. So if you're working in a clinic where you're seeing MVAs, people post-concussion, vestibular stuff, you know that there's a lot of different visual involvement that goes along with each of these injuries. So to have something where people can start working on eye retraining is really great. I've worked with a couple different apps before. None of them are all-encompassing and have everything that you're going to need. But this is called iExercise Game Medicare. Is pretty fun, and it's got some different kinds of visual speed, visual acuity. It has you do some number finding, like within a diagram. You can have the patient work on it with their head still or moving their head with their eyes to find whatever it is on the screen. And you can download this one on your iPad or your phone or have a patient do it for fun at home. And this is just another one that if that visual acuity piece is part of the patient's issue, like it's playing into headaches, playing into dizziness, whatever, again, this is a really, really simple way that you can allow patients to sort of like take an active role and not just wait to the clinic to come and do some of this visual retraining stuff. Okay, moving on. The next one is a pretty standard one. It's the 1RM app. For anyone working and doing a lot of resistance training, and whether that's with people who are 87 or people who are 17, this is an app that can really help you to determine what's a safe weight. So basically what this app does is it takes any repetitions at any weight and it can calculate your 1RM. So if you have, Grandma Doris in the clinic and she can hold a 2-pound weight, and you find that she can lift that weight 17 times before she just can't do it anymore, then it helps you to calculate her 1RM so that you have a better idea of higher resistance levels without feeling unsafe about it. And that doesn't mean that you ditch everything else and you're like, hey lady, you're gonna curl 17 pounds right here, right now, because this app told me that you could. But it does give you a better idea of kind of like where you can push that edge, what you could do at 7 repetitions instead of 20, and get you more comfortable with kind of pushing that resistance. Also, it's just handy for athletes to have so that they have some feedback about how far they can go. Athletes love having their 1 rep max, so if that's an important measure, then it's good for us to be able to kind of like go with them that way to the clinic, and be able to just kind of say like, hey, I'm noticing in this realm with good form, using the mechanics we talked about, stabilizing your scapula, whatever, you can do, 10 reps at this weight. And what that tells me is that your 1 rep max is up to X. So that's something that's really good feedback, just like the range of motion measures, so that patients can see that they're improving and doing it in a language that they're used to. All right, guys, just 2-ish more. So the next one is called PT Pal Pro. And this one is an app that I haven't used a lot, so I can't actually speak to its efficacy and ease of use in the clinic. But the idea is that it's an app that you as the clinician download and then your patient can download. And it clocks their exercise and home exercise performance, so if they're actually doing the things you're asking them to. Now, again, I haven't used this a lot in the clinic, so I'm not sure about it, but if this actually does what it says it does, it could be really nice. Like, how many people do we have who have a problem being consistent with home exercise? I mean, I do. It's still an issue. But if you have something like, honestly, this is sort of a Big Brother app where it's looking over their shoulder and saying, hey, did you do it today? Hey, did you do it today? Where they can check that box and it actually gets sent to you so that they've done their exercises. This is something that could keep people much more accountable and help those people who have a hard time like making the time to do their HEP right off the bat, just to have that set time and know that you're watching them, basically, which is kind of creepy, but at the same time could be really, really effective for those people who have difficulty getting to this stuff during the day. So PT Pal Pro is that next one. The last one that's on this list is iOrtho Plus. Now, this is not one that I think I would recommend for most clinicians, but if you are a student or if you are a brand new clinician, this one can be really, really handy. This one is actually $14.99. Yes, by far the most expensive one on this list. And it's similar to CORE, which is short for clinical ortho exam, which is a more expensive one at $40 dinero. That's right, $40, really expensive. But what this one does, again, this one's called iOrtho Plus, is it takes the body and it gives you different body parts to click on. When you click on the knee, it takes you through all the special tests. It takes you through all the considerations that are close to the knee. It takes you through all the possible elements to consider. And it's kind of nice. And I think that while it probably is not good at guiding a clinical ideation, and while some of the tests on there, especially the cervical ones for vascular stuff, are not up to date or necessarily correct or appropriate, it's a really good starting space. If you're having trouble as a student or a clinician remembering that you have to check for bony compromise in an athlete, when you're scrolling through there, it'll have tests for bone, or tests for fracture. So, being sure that you're testing all the right elements could be handy in terms of using this app, and honestly just going through and having some review. The other cool thing is it has some screening questions on it, so that that if you're in a region where, for example, the appendix can refer to in the hip or like the anterior hip region, it's got some good appendicitis like screening tests. So for example, it has some of those underlying things. But if you're a student or you're a new clinician and you're really just trying to learn how to get all your tests into one grouping, this can be a good way for you to review, just so that you're sure you're meeting at least these standard tests and measures in terms of looking at different body parts. So those are the 10-ish apps. I'm not sure if I did 11. I can't remember at this point. But at this point, I think that apps have become something that we're going to use. I think that technology, while not my favorite thing, is something that I think can be really, really helpful in the clinic. And honestly, everybody's got a smartphone these days, so we might as well use that technology to allow patients to be more independent, more effective, and honestly have more fun. So I hope you guys have great days out there. Try to download some of these apps. Again, I will post a list of all the apps that I talked about at the bottom of the Facebook video. Just a shout out so you guys know, there are a bunch of courses coming up for ICE Live here. There's 2 manipulation courses for the spine. The first one is next weekend, and it's coming up in Georgia at Mark Hutchinson's clinic, who I'm super stoked is coming with us to Haiti in January. And the next weekend, there's one in Virginia. Jeff is teaching the C-Spine course out in Indiana later this month, as well as Fitness Athlete is going to be live in Michigan in July, and Eric Chaconis will be teaching the Extremity course in Vegas coming up here soon. So if you guys are in those areas, check that out. Christy Acker, I love this shirt, and I'm glad you have one too. So have a good day out there, you guys, and again, try to implement some of these apps where you think it's appropriate, and have a great day.